Now, the difference between a mid-physique and elite level shape isn't your genetics, it isn't your workout program, it is not the exercises you are doing, it is simply your standards inside and outside of the gym, okay? Hence why most individuals simply believe that you cannot continue to build muscle while you drop fat. And that is going to be down to the fact that your standards are written off, which means you don't have the ability to do that. So if you give me to the end of this video, I have literally mapped out everything you need to be doing in order to mean that you can continue to grow muscle as you drop fat. I mean, we're going into some serious detail here, boys, about the basic stuff, nutrition and training that I'll skim over, and then the stuff that actually matters, okay? So it is pure source from head to toe, and you simply need to watch the end of this video and then you'll know exactly what you need to be doing. So, how I drop fat and build muscle at the same time. This is 6 weeks between these two photos, 4 kilos down, and I'm clearly, visually, much bigger on the right. That is because I built muscle as I dropped fat, okay? So 84 kilo here, obviously carrying a lot of fat around the midsection, chest, legs, etc. In comparison to 80 kilo here, full set of abs, shoulder veins, bicep veins, all of that fun stuff. Now, how do I know that I actually grew at the same time? Just so that you know that I'm not like capping, right? My lifts kept progressing with standardized form every single time. My clothes felt tighter, not looser. I legit remember putting on this one t-shirt before I went away on holiday. This is a photo that I took in Marbella, and it was fitting tighter in comparison to beforehand, especially around the arm area. And I had stretch marks appearing, okay, in my sort of bicep armpit area, as well as across my legs. And there was no loss in size visually, okay? I'll be checking in with my coach every single week and I have the ability to see, am I getting smaller? And no, I wasn't. Now, understand though that realistically, just to be truthful to you boys, this method only works to a certain point, particularly if you're natural, okay? So once you go past like the sort of realm of being, you know, still carrying a little bit of body fat around that like 12% area to more so like sub 10%, as a natural athlete, you probably are going to sacrifice a little bit of muscle, okay? So as you can see, that jump from then, you know, 84 to 80, from 80 to 75, there was a slight loss of size, but even then, obviously, I've retained my size very, very well. You wouldn't really be able to tell the difference. There is just obviously a slightly different angle to this photo. I'm obviously sort of stood side on, but there is going to be an element of losing muscle. But realistically, none of you boys are going to get stage lean like this. I mean, like legit legs, I mean veins all over your legs, like striated abs, like everything. You're never probably going to look like this, okay? I just did it for fun because I love getting shredded. You're probably going to more so want to look like this, which is around that 12% body fat area, you know, abs fully in. And while being there, you can most definitely still progress on every single lift. I can guarantee you that, boys. And you can continue to build muscle in the diet phase, which is exactly what I'm about to break down. So the facts, if you still don't believe me, even after seeing the evidence. Number one, build muscle and burn fat at once. Your body funds muscle from stored fat, so a surplus isn't necessarily needed. This is proven more so than ever with recent studies that have come out. If you have levels of body fat on your frame, you can pull enough energy from that body fat in order to mean that you can continue to build muscle. What are the 3 pillars of building muscle? Number one is training stimulus, so progressive overload, continuously getting stronger in the gym. Number 2 is protein synthesis, which you should easily be getting from your diet. Anything more than like 170 grams, you're fine. And then number 3 is having enough energy in order to allow for protein synthesis to occur, okay? The process of muscle building, mTOR, in other words, which I won't get into, which you do, proven more than ever, have enough energy for that to happen if you have some body fat stores, okay? So unless you are literally watching this video dick skin shredded like this guy here, then this completely applies to you because I guarantee you have enough body fat in order to mean that you can keep growing. And then a study, as of 2016, men in a 40% deficit gained 1.2 kilos of muscle and lost 4.8 kilo of fat on a high protein diet. Not one study as well, meta-analysis and trained lifter trials all confirm it. And then the most recent 2026 data, lifters gain muscle and lost fat, non-lifters lost muscle. Okay, so if you are stimulating your muscle properly, you'll be absolutely fine. And then, of course, it's easiest in your first few years when the newbie gains are at the strongest. You know, early on, you have your primed hormones and your muscle is just, you know, keen to grow because it's so receptive to that adaptation, okay? More body fat equals more recomp potential, and it will slow down as you get leaner. So like I said here, that sort of potential to keep building muscle will slow down the leaner you get, but it is still possible, especially for you boys. And then the 4 levers, Mild deficit, protein 2.4 gram per kilo, around that area. I'll get into it specifically later in the video. Progressive overload in your lifting and consistency over a long period of time. And understand the scale is going to lie, okay? Track your measurements, your photos, and your strength, your performance, your output in the gym over everything else, especially when you are going for that sort of a body recomp, drop the fat, build some muscle approach. So let's skim over the stuff that hopefully you would know by now, but there is still going to be a plenty of free game in here, stuff that you've probably never heard before. So keep your ears peeled or eyes peeled. Number one is obviously a small deficit, okay? So instead of kick-starting off with 800 calorie deficit and then wondering why your performance goes to shit and you then lose all of your muscle, you need to be in a very small deficit at the start of your diet phase, okay? So let's say you're a lad that's holding 15-16% body fat after maybe a bulk or something like that. You're going to want to start off in a small deficit. So average male, probably bulking around 3,000, 3,200 calories. Drop that down simply to around 2,900, okay? A small drop in those calories in order to mean that you're still eating enough food to be able to have a good performance in the gym, okay? And it doesn't need to be a major deficit because we're going to utilize the tools that I speak about later in the video in order to drop the fat, right? Taken from fats and carbs if needed, okay? So if you're pulling away from your food, I would firstly pull away from fats, the highest calorie per gram ratio of a macronutrient, okay? 9 calories per gram, so I'd definitely pull away from your fats first, especially given that realistically, if you're going into a diet phase, high fats isn't really going to be necessary, okay? We need some in there, but we want to be having a big focus on carbs, which I'll get into shortly, okay? And then only pull away again from carbs if needed, but I'd definitely start with your fat sources. And then don't really touch protein, okay? You want to keep that nice and high. Only reduce more when your fat loss plateaus after both scale weight and visually, okay? So not just when the scale, stops for like a week. Don't pull more food from then because you'll just find that you've already dropped 1,000 calories like 4 weeks in. And then again, you wonder why you feel like shit in the gym and you wonder why you can't hold on to your muscle. So when you saw visually and the scale weight, that's when you should probably take away a little bit more food or increase expenditure. And then when reducing further, take away from the unnecessary fats and carbs. Okay, so this is going to be things like your extra peanut butter, your extra dark chocolate, or extra eggs that you don't really need, or potentially like spread sauces, things like that. And then carbs eventually if you have to. Just more so taking it away from points in the day when you can get away with it a bit better. So often with clients, I'll take away carbs from meal one, usually, first of all. So let's say they had a bagel with their eggs. I'd probably pull the bagel out at some point in their diet first before any of the other meals, because you're not going to need that many carbs in the morning in comparison to maybe pre-workout in the evening when you want to be obviously anchoring around your carbs for performance in the gym. And then no more than 1,000 total calories of a deficit, okay? Because that is when you're entering the realms of performance going to shit. Now, keep your protein high, extremely important. So 1.5 grams of protein per body weight, 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. Protein, that is the general rule of thumb. Okay, you probably know this by now. Lean protein so that your fat sources can be lowered easily. Okay, so it'll be a lot easier to, remove a bit of peanut butter or some dark chocolate or something like that in comparison to, if you were eating like pork mince or high fat beef mince or, chicken legs and stuff like that, these fatty sources of protein, where it'll then be harder to specifically incrementally lower your fats. Okay, so keep your protein lean and have your fats on the side. Olive oil, dark chocolate, peanut butter, etc. And then high volume protein for satiation. Okay, this is extremely important. Choose your highest volume protein sources. It's going to be egg whites, it's going to be your beef mince, okay, it's going to be your whey protein, especially if you make it into a nice whey drip. These things that are going to be nice lean protein that you can eat a lot of, that's going to keep the calories nice and low, so that you don't sort of get driven mad by hunger, because even if it's a small deficit, you're probably still going to feel it. And then don't touch protein unless you're pulling fat sources, okay? So if you had 4 eggs in meal one, for an example, and you had to pull fat sources from somewhere, if the protein was already sky high and you could probably afford to take away from it a little bit, maybe like 220 grams to 200 grams, then obviously feel free to lower from the direct protein to fat sources if needed. And then keep your carbohydrate intake high. This is extremely, extremely important. This is one of the main pinnacles of this whole process. So keep as high as you can literally afford, right, without affecting protein, basically. So as long as your protein's in a good spot, as long as you have some healthy fats in there, hoping that you're carb cycling as well, which means that you're probably going to have lower fats on your training day, slightly higher fats on your rest day when you eat less carbs on your rest day. Keep them as high as you possibly can. Like legit, try to avoid lowering carbs as much as possible until you absolutely have to, which will eventually come, and then obviously remove from the unnecessary sort of places in your day. Clean, high volume carbs, your white potato, your oats, your cream of rice. Okay, look at, getting the most bang for your buck with your food always. Multiple carb sources is always going to help as well. Your body can only digest so much of certain carb sources at a certain point. So if you mix and match them, it actually means that you can digest more overall carbohydrates at one time. So go to method: fructose, dextrose, starch, fiber, all of the different types of carbs. Obviously you've got your fruit, you've got your complex carbs from something more like whole grain rice, sweet potato when it's got some fibre, etc. Or your simple sugars, your jams, your spreads, your rice cakes, your caramel snacker jacks, all of these things. We want to be having a mixture of all of them. And then try avoid pulling from pre and post workout as much as you possibly can. We want to be getting the majority of our carbohydrates pre and post workout so that we have efficient blood glycogen level stores in order to mean that we can perform optimally in the gym. And performance in the gym is pretty much everything in regards to actually retaining your muscle in a diet. So that is why it's important that you're fueling that properly through your nutrition. And then that ties directly into your peri-workout nutrition, what you eat before, after, during the gym. Okay, so never go below 50 gram of carb pre-workout, general rule of thumb. Unless you are extremely, extremely skinny, I would say for most individuals, keep carbs 50 gram and above at pre-workout as a set standard, and keep it a nice sort of similar variable as well. So your body almost knows it's fucking game time when you eat a shit ton of carbs before you go to the gym, okay? Same for your post-workout, 50 gram pre-post, general rule of thumb. In a diet phase, I would never normally go lower than like 80 gram carb pre and post-workout. You want to be anchoring a good amount of that glycogen around your workout time, as obviously the main objective is to drive performance and increase output in the gym. 10 to 15 grams of intra-carb for energy signaling. Now, if you legit, like this is proven in studies, okay, again, more so than ever recently, if you were to literally sip on the tiniest amount of like sugar water, for an example, the most simple form of carbohydrate, like sugar water or like a Lucozade or something like that, it is going to legitimately signal to your brain that you have more energy than you actually have. It's almost like a psychological trick. There's certain receptors in your brain that when they can tell that you're having carbs, from obviously the receptors in your mouth, it then signals to your body that you are more ready to go and perform, to go and lift the weight, to go and provide output in comparison to if you're not having anything at all. So I'm not saying you need a shit ton of carbs during your workout because the carbs themselves are going to directly benefit you, but signaling to your brain that you have more energy through like literally just tasting carbs. You could even spit it out after, like the study is legit saying that. Don't do that. But yeah, just having some form of intracarb is going to help for energy signaling in the brain and the central nervous system. Save out on carbs in meals that you don't need them as much. Again, like your meal one, your breakfast, potentially your final meal of the day, pre-bed. Do you really need the carbs? Potentially. I quite like having carbs pre-bed to lower my cortisol, keep stress nice and low, and get a good sleep in for recovery, which again directly benefits muscle growth. So just look around your day, your routine. Where do you actually need carbs? Where do you not need carbs? High volume pre-workout meal. This is again a bit of a sort of more like psychological trick. If you're going to the gym feeling hungry, your body is going to automatically associate that with less performance, less ability to perform in the gym and have energy. So even if you were to have something that was ridiculously high calorie, but it was extremely low volume, like a Snickers bar or something like that, and it didn't fill you up whatsoever, even though you're technically getting the same amount of sugars, carbs, whatever it is from that, if you feel less satiated, if your hunger hormones are signaling, you are going to inevitably perform worse in the gym. So make sure your pre-workout meal is nice and high in volume. At least enough. It doesn't have to be anything unnecessary. I'm just saying don't eat fuck all before the gym. High volume post-workout meal, exact same sort of protocol, but that's more so for like satiation, help lower your stress, tell your body that you've eaten some food and it's time to go into recovery mode. Caffeine, why not utilize one of the most powerful tools to increase performance, given performance is the pinnacle of continuing to grow in a diet phase, okay? So anywhere from 150 to 400 milligrams, as long as you're having that before around 4 p.m, I would definitely recommend one of the most basic stimulants that is simply going to increase your performance in the gym. Beta-alanine, increased blood flow, it's not really necessary, but it will help. Electrolytes, this is huge. A lot of lads are in a deficit, getting confused as to why they feel so shit, and then all they've had is like 3 pints of water before the gym. Like, bro, you need to be doming water, okay? At least 3 litres in pre-gym, unless you train like super early, it might be more like 1.5 to 2 litres with some electrolytes. But make sure that you are actually getting a good balance of electrolytes in. That will benefit your performance more than fucking anything, okay? It's not the deficit, it's your lack of standards outside of the gym, and that includes drinking some water, bro. Pair that with 6 cranks of salt pre and post workout to make sure your sodium intake is nice and consistent, and you are actually able to provide your muscle with some form of a pump by giving yourself some sodium. I recommend some potassium in there as well to level out the electrolytes, but basically spam your electrolytes, drink a shit ton of water. You'll already notice that your performance in the gym is 10 times better in that deficit. 3 litres of water pre-workout, 2 litres water post-workout minimum. That's sort of my go-to protocol. You'll notice even if you like pretty much intentionally drown yourself in water before you go to the gym, you will feel a lot better. Overhydrate instead of underhydrating. Exact same digestion time. Okay, so make sure you're leaving it like 40 minutes to 90 minutes pre-workout after you've eaten your pre-workout meal, depending on how big that meal is, how many calories you're eating, etc. Sip water throughout. This is extremely important again to just remain hydrated. Again, pair that with like some carb powder, some dextrose, even a bit of honey in your water. As long as it's nice and consistent and not affecting your deficit, it will have a big benefit on performance. Post-workout carbs, get them in ASAP. As soon as you've done your cardio, dome your cereal, dome your bagel and jam, your simple carbs, get them in fast, okay? We want those carbs to hit our bloodstream straight away, lower that cortisol, increase your blood glycogen, and replenish those glycogen stores in your muscle in order to mean recovery mode, okay? The protein window doesn't really matter as much, but the carbohydrate window, the replenishing of glycogen does matter a little bit more. And then less high in protein for your sort of peri-workout nutrition is absolutely fine. Sound. And then going over to meal timings, pretty simple stuff. We'll run through this quickly. This is a little tip that can help. Indeed, fasting in mornings on rest days, okay? It's just going to mean that you can eat a little bit more at the back end of the day. I wouldn't always recommend this. Obviously, we want protein synthesis to be nice and consistent, but it is one of those things where if you do find yourself getting hungry in a diet phase on a rest day, a bit of fasting in the morning never hurts. Last meal, 1 hour pre-bed. Make sure that you are getting some carbs in pre-bed in order to lower your cortisol, mean you can have a good night's sleep, recovery is primed, and then you can go into the gym and smash it the next day. Pre-workout meal, 40 to 90 minutes before the gym. Keep your set meal times and space them out evenly throughout the day. Again, these are just some set basic principles and standards in order to mean that you can actually build some muscle while you're dieting. Your carb sources, going from like sort of complex to simple. Obviously, you've got your white potato. This is goated for volume. It's cheap. It's fucking tasty. It's super voluminous. Your rice, obviously, and then a bit more simple. Things like your bagels, your wraps, sourdough, rice cakes, and then your fructose forms like an apple or fruit, banana, etc. And then your super simple carbs, sugar carbs, or obviously tied in with fructose here as well. Your jams, your spreads, your honeys, things like that, okay? As for protein, obviously lean protein choices, chicken breast, 5% beef mince, tuna is super goated. I love tuna, super convenient. Eggs as well, obviously goated, super great amino acids, good micronutrient profile as well. And your whey proteins, of course. And then as for your fat sources, peanut butter, 85% or dark chocolate, some olive oil, and then obviously your meats contain your fat sources as well. So your beef mince, got some fat in there, and your eggs have got some fat in there, which you can count in your total fats for the day. So yeah, that covers literally everything that you need to know about food if you didn't know it already. And then probably, arguably more important if you are, trying to gain muscle as you drop fat would be your training. So give your body a reason to keep growing. This is extremely, extremely fucking important. Don't just move to machines because you're in a cut. I see so many lads that move into a diet phase and think, oh, I'm going to stop squatting. I'm going to stop doing hack squat. I'm going to stop doing the stuff that, requires a lot of energy and effort. I'm going to preserve my energy. And then they wonder why they look really skinny like 3 weeks down the line, okay? Don't just move to machines because you're in a deficit. That is a pussy move, right? Genuinely. Keep your compound lifts in there, right? Keep the hard shit in there. It's going to provide more overall muscle stimulus, which is extremely important. That is why I'll still RDL in my deficits. I'll still barbell row in my deficits. And that is why my back probably retains more muscle than yours, okay? You've got to think like the absolute pinnacle of physique development, you have to force the muscle to grow, and it is true, okay? So if you hop straight over to machines thinking you're preserving your energy, you're fried, bro. You're not stimulating that muscle anywhere near as much. Don't expect to feel full. That fullness feeling in the gym when you were eating 500 grams of carbs, 4 squares bars before the gym, and blah, 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 when you can literally feel you're like blowing up. Yeah, don't expect to feel that in a diet phase, bro, and that's completely normal. You're eating less food, you're going to have less glycogen, and just because you don't feel like you're bursting out of your skin, it's completely normal, okay? Don't reduce your volume unless you absolutely have to, okay? If you are genuinely feeling battered, if you're at the back end of a diet phase, then potentially reducing some volume may be required, and just keeping intensity nice and high. But for the majority of you like watching this video, you're not going to have to reduce your volume, okay? Your body can handle it, I can promise you that. Progress can and should be expected, but don't get pissed off if not. This is absolutely huge. I mean, obviously the pinnacle of this is you should still be able to progress in the gym. You should still be able to get stronger if you are doing things right. But if you don't progress, for an example, don't get pissed off. Look at your routine. What did you do differently that day? Was your sleep as good? Was your hydration as good? Was your stress all over the place? And don't let it get in your head, okay? Otherwise, you'll just get into a cycle of losing strength in all of your lifts. And then look at routine first, if any issues, then mindset, and then your form on the lifts, okay? If you are, not progressing. And then the next pinnacle, protect your energy, extremely important. Cardio, post-gym, moderate, low fatigue. I would never recommend doing extreme forms of cardio before the gym because you are, rinsing away from your energy stores. And at the end of the day, we want to keep those energy stores as primed as possible in a dark phase in order to mean that obviously we can put all of that towards our training. Step spam, post-gym, get your steps in after the gym. Literally, main objective, save as much energy up for the gym as possible. Perform as best as you can to keep that muscle on your frame. And then spam some low fatigue cardio outside of that. Train in the morning if possible, as energy tends to be high. There's less that's been going on in your day. Make sure you're just getting a solid pre-workout meal in. Your peri-workout nutrition has to be solid, which we've covered. Sleep 8 hours, there should be a non-negotiable to mean that you are fully recovered in order to be able to actually go and perform in the gym. Don't overanalyze your levels of energy. You're going to feel a little less energy in the deficit. If you let that get to your head, your brain will tell you that you don't have the ability to perform, then you don't perform, then you lose your muscle. See it as a challenge, not a setback. Discomfort is where growth occurs. Oh my God, yeah, you're going to feel shit, right? But that is the discomfort where most lads say, oh, okay, I'm having a bad session. They pussy out and they lose all their muscle. You're going to do the opposite and you're literally going to view it as a challenge and think, regardless of how shit I feel, regardless of the fact that I'm seeing stars because I've eaten barely anything across the week, I am still going to progress in the gym. No unnecessary drop sets, that will just build up unnecessary fatigue. Get in and get out, okay, minimum effective dose. Make sure your workouts are nice and efficient. You can just get in and crush it and then get out. Hardest to progress on sessions at the start of the week, okay? So any sessions that you find really hard to progress on, for example, that would be my push days. Put them at the start of the week where you're going to inevitably have a bit more energy and you're a bit more fresh, okay? Now, preset over the set itself. Preset is more important than the set itself. Not enough people speak about this. So 1 to 2 minutes before big sets, make sure that you are sort of getting yourself hyped up, right? So spike your adrenaline using excitement or anger techniques. Sounds a little bit cringe, but it is real, okay? Any lifters that you see on Instagram that have like incredible, physiques or anything like that, they're going to have the ability to just fucking zone in, whether that's using excitement or anger or emotions, whatever it is. Use some techniques that basically just inevitably spikes your adrenaline, gets your heart rate up, blood flow, increase the oxygen to the muscle. The muscle needs oxygen, better performance. Visualize the full set before you go into the set, okay? So take that 1 to 2 minutes before your big sets and actually visualize yourself completing it. No distractions, no phones, no texting people, no getting fucking pissed off at your girlfriend. The gym is where you need to perform if you want to hold on to your muscle. And then increase your oxygen intake by doing some rapid, short, fast breaths through your nose and out through your mouth into some deep breaths as well. Gel breaking sets, this is a bit more like bottom of the iceberg stuff, but like think about it. For anyone who's like in a deficit, feeling a little bit flat and feeling that element of like you just have less like structure to your physique, less like ability to just like chuck around weight and you feel like small and stringy and you begin to think, oh, like I feel like my biceps going to tear off, or oh, like it feels really heavy. Like, do you really think that your muscle is going to snap? Like, do you have any idea whatsoever how strong a muscle actually is? Okay, the things that snap is your tendons and your ligaments. Your muscle won't snap, right? So you always have the ability to push harder and add more reps. It is just going to be increasingly, incredibly much harder the further you get into the deficit, but it is still possible, and those who do it are the ones who grow more muscle. Imagine someone next to you saying 1 more rep 24/7. This is what I do. I picture my coach shouting in my ear saying, fucking get 1 more rep, you pussy. It helps, right? Little psychological factors like that sounds cringe, but if it means that you can keep more muscle on your frame, do it. Getting into the zone required to take progressions no matter what. So again, this could be, spiking emotions, anger, excitement, whatever it is, whatever you need to do to like truly lock in and actually get in the zone that means that you can progress. And then that goes back to obviously spiking your adrenaline to increase oxygen. And then use whatever your strongest emotion is. Are you having a really bad week where you're struggling with anxiety? Use the fact that you've had a shit week and that you have anxiety and put it into the gym in, positive direction towards your sets. Bit of sort of bottom of the iceberg stuff, but gel breaking sets basically means using your emotions to override your body physically telling you to stop, and pushing through with it by using sort of like psychological tricks and just being a fucking legend. Because at the end of the day, you've got to view it like, if you have, 200 kilo loaded up on the bar, and that felt relatively, heavy but doable when you were like 100 kilo in a bulk or something, and then you've lost 20 kilo, you're 80 kilo, and you're still trying to do that, your body is going to say, nah bro, we can't do this anymore. But I can guarantee, if you've actually structured the bulk phase correctly, your body still does have the ability to do that. Okay, you're just going to have to tell your body, fuck that, we're not listening to the safe side of our brain, and we're just going to push through nonetheless. And that is how you keep the muscle on your frame. Progressive overload should be a standard for at least the first 10 weeks of dieting. Definitely don't get pissed off if you don't. Like we mentioned, everything, brace is everything, stability is everything. Okay, we'll touch on these later. Standardization of routine, okay, your hydration, your meal timing, your sleep. Log booking is obviously extremely important, so that you actually have an eye on your numbers. If you're not log booking, then maybe go and watch some other videos first, because we should be log booking by now. Okay, so tracking your lifts is non-negotiable. Pushing musculature may suffer. Okay, so understand your push muscles, your chest, your front delts, etc. It's like one of your smallest muscle groups, and this is the one that I will tell clients, you might see some decrease in strength, because so many people just do. A lot of it's genetic, some people will be fine, but given it's just such a small muscle group, and it actually gets so much more stability when you have some body fat in a bulk, for an example, and you lose that quite quickly when you're in a deficit, it can often take a bit of a hit. But again, you should still be progressing, but it may just be harder. A progression isn't just more weight and more reps. It could be slowing down the tempo. It could be, making your form even better. It doesn't have to just be, adding more weight and reps. And then obviously tracking everything should be an absolute non-negotiable. Okay, so this ties us into the actual training pyramid. So as you can see here, the preset, more important than the set itself. 1 to 2 minutes of sitting there, visualization, getting the adrenaline spiked, picturing success, genuinely getting into that zone. A set should not just be, I'm going to go into the gym and do a couple fucking sets on chest press. That's the pure gym lads who look skinny. A set should be, this is my one objective of the day in order to mean that I can actually grow muscle. Sit down 1 to 2 minutes, visualize your set being successful, increase your oxygen intake by spiking your adrenaline and doing some sharp breathing to increase oxygen, and then your brace. Brace is extremely fucking important, okay? So you got to picture your abdominal wall as a belt, almost like a natural lifting belt. So in order to brace properly, you need to fill the tank, okay, which is a huge breath in of oxygen, right, or multiple, okay? Just make sure that you are filling your lungs full of air, and then picture your abdominal wall and your chest is like a tank that you want to fill full of air, and that you're pushing that air out as hard as you possibly can against that tank. Big breath plus brace your core, and then increase your stability, your intra-abdominal pressure by pushing that air outwards, okay, towards the lining of your abdominals. Basically picture, and then squeezing it as if you're trying to blow up pretty much. Okay, do that as hard as you possibly can, particularly for your pushing movements where you have such little stability, and your, all movements. Brace is absolutely huge. But that is going to naturally give you so much more stability, which I can guarantee if you're fucking up by doing random breathing patterns, not breathing, etc., that's probably the main reason why you're not progressing in a diet. So make sure that you are bracing properly. That means you will be successful and progress on your set, at least hopefully. Nonetheless, what actually matters, okay, the real spiel, right, the serious stuff. Number one would be expenditure, okay? This is the most underrated fat loss tool that not enough people speak about, and it just means that you can legit eat more food, which means better performance, and you can burn more fat, hold on to more muscle. Steps, we all know about steps, but 10k daily minimum, 10k daily steps minimum. Increase that by 10% every couple of weeks, okay? So 10,100, 10,200, increase that, maybe a little bit more of a bump depending on where you're at with the deficit. Nothing more than 17.5k, I'd say, as a general rule of thumb, otherwise you look at probably building up some fatigue. Simple as park further away from the shops, walk to the pub. Podcasts associated with walking will help you basically get addicted to walking, little trick. Fitness tracker helps, your Apple Watches, Fitbits, etc. Check every 4 hours to see if you need to schedule in a walk. Walking pad, £99, best investment of your whole entire fucking life. And digestion walks, these are great as well. And then cardio, 20-30 minutes daily out of the gate, no more than 40 minutes, because obviously that will build up unnecessary fatigue. Make sure it's your low intensity cardio. Okay, lads will go into a fat loss phase, start running because they think it's going to mean that it burns more fat off of their frame quicker, and then wonder why they end up skinny. No, keep it low intensity, spin bike, cross trainer, stairmaster. The whole objective of this is that we want to get as much bang for our buck as possible. That means eating as much food as we can in our deficit, doing as minimal fatiguing cardio as we can in our deficit, and simply utilizing these tools to mean we are in fat oxidation without, burning into muscle or losing muscle, right? Limit intense cardio, like you're running, like you paddle, whatever it is, just in your deficit. Like you can maybe do this a bit more when you're in a growth phase or something, you have those excess energy stores. Netflix zeros for the cardio to habit stack. Okay, watch one Netflix series that you associate with cardio so your brain gets addicted to cardio, which makes it easier. Another little bit of free game. Heart rate, you want to get it to 120, 130 BPM. It should not be easy. Okay, you should be pedaling hard. You should be building up a sweat. Post gym, if possible, fasted if not. This just means that we can anchor our energy as much as possible around the gym training, around the gym session itself. So basically try not to do your cardio straight before the gym. That will cook you. Not before the gym. And then NEAT. Oh god, NEAT. So basically there's going to be the thermic effective meals. Okay, there's going to be your resting metabolic rate, there's going to be your NEAT, and then there's going to be exercise on top of that. Okay, your NEAT being normal everyday activity thermogenesis. Okay, so keep moving throughout the day, stay busy, have an active job. If not, be active at your job. Every little counts, don't slow down. You'll notice in a deficit, as you begin to have less energy overall, you just begin moving less overall, okay, which we don't want to be happening because that will slow down the rate of fat loss. And NEAT is again one of the simple, easiest ways to burn calories without chipping into the energy source that could take away from our training sessions. Okay, so just make sure you're still fidgeting and doing your usual stuff throughout the day, not just sitting down after the gym for 4 hours because you feel knackered. Okay, and then actually adopting the lifestyle, right? The 22 hours outside of the gym. This is where standards come into play massively. So first of all, your routine, stop basing it off of emotions. This is huge. If you let a bad day get in the way of your performance in the gym or get in the way of your meal prep for work the next day or something like that, then that is going to keep you looking average. Okay, set timings, to-do lists, set wake up time, bedtime, eliminate decision fatigue. Otherwise you'll be thinking, fuck, what do I eat, blah blah. That's why I like to follow a meal plan. Kill bad habits that hold you back from achieving your dream physique. Have some systems in place to make this all easier for yourself, and have some accountability. Whether that's a friend that you make a bet with, a coach, or even just saying to your mum, I'm going to fucking build some muscles, I drop fat in this cut, by doing all the things that we've spoken about so far. Okay. Social life, one of the main things that gets in the way for people. Number one, be the designated driver. It really is as simple as that. Do you need to drink alcohol? Probably not. Just be the designated driver for that 16-week diet phase if you want to look legitimately unreal after it. Food, alcohol isn't going anywhere, okay? It's going to stay around, so you're not missing out. You can have it whenever. Just for this period of your life, you're going to be locked in. Save it for special events. If there's things like weddings, your mum's birthday or something like that, then obviously in that case, potentially fine. Don't give in to social pressure. Practice gratitude, just feeling good and grateful for the things, the ability to be able to diet, the ability to be able to train in the gym. Don't be a hermit as well. Don't just not go outside and be one of these gas warriors who, fucking shuts himself in the gym. That will never get you anywhere. They often look like shit as well. Don't share your goals. This is extremely important. Keep them to yourself, otherwise you will have judgment around you. People don't care for your success, they care for their success. Don't over-explain yourself, and make adaptations necessary, okay? Your Diet Coke, your chewing gum, your fucking nicotine if you absolutely have to. Just doing things that aren't going to affect your physique, right? And then employment, work, what the hell. Meal prep, obviously non-negotiable to make your life so much easier. You need to be staying on top of your meal timings if you want to continue to build muscle and drop fat. So make sure you are prepping your meals. Training pre-work if possible. Again, energy normally better in the mornings, stress lower in the mornings. Train before work if you can. Toilet breaks to get your meals in, underrated strat. This is what I used to have to do. Again, need to be staying on top of that protein synthesis, carbohydrate intake, etc. So get your meals in. Productive lunch break is extremely important as well. This is where you could go, get your steps in, open up your meal prep, eat your meal prep, so on and so forth. Minimize your stress and don't just follow the crowd, bro. Okay, we want to be basically protecting that hour to 2 hours in the gym as much as possible. So if you're letting that outside influence get to you, then you're fucked, right? So don't follow the crowd and fucking minimize your stress as much as possible. Now, what else is extremely important is pushing through the skinny fat phase. This is bro in his skinny fat phase, looking mid as fuck. Little do you know, you literally just need to lose more fat. Okay, so ignore the mirror for weeks. Okay, I would genuinely recommend just put on like a pump cover for like the first 6 weeks of your diet, because you're not going to be lean enough to look good, and you're not going to have enough fullness in your muscle from the carbs that you were probably having in the bulk, because obviously they've inevitably been lowered as you've gone into deficit, in order to look full enough and be huge, because you're eating a bunch of food, which is basically just an illusion of the muscle being full of fluid and glycogen, which makes you feel bigger than you actually are. So as soon as you get rid of that, you're going to feel small and you're going to feel fat, which is horrible. And if you don't push through that skinny fat phase, then you won't be able to drop fat and build muscle. So yeah, ignore the flat feeling like we spoke about before. You're not going to feel super pumped and full in the gym. It doesn't mean you should lose your pumps entirely. Just make sure you're salting your meals, drinking a good amount of water. Don't just refeed as soon as you're feeding a little bit soft and small. Okay, this is one of the things that will just keep you fat instead of being able to drop fat and build muscle. You need to just stick to the deficit. I can guarantee you probably never need a refeed. And the light is at the end of the tunnel, bro. Okay, the lads who push through the skinny fat phase, they're the ones who look fucking sick. And then finally would be breaking your limiting beliefs, pretty much tying back to what we were saying at the beginning of the video. You basically think that a calorie deficit means that you have to end up skinny, small, losing a bunch of muscle, etc. That's because you're not doing anything outside of the gym as well as inside of the gym. Your standards aren't high enough in order to mean that you can continue to grow muscle in a diet phase, right? So you literally associate dieting with a lack of progress, other than the fact that maybe you have a cool six pack. That then leads to you having shit standards. Okay, your training goes to shit. You're starving yourself, eating no food. You're not staying on top of your expenditure, your cardio, the easy tools that we can use to drop fat, which then means you end up eating a bunch of shit food because you crash out on the weekend or something like that. And that just keeps you in a cycle of being fat. So this is basically like a negative loop that I see a lot of people in. What you've got to view it as is, in a deficit, I still have plenty of fuel going in from food. Just because I'm eating less of it than my body needs in order to hold on to body fat stores, then that doesn't make sense. Just because you're eating less food, which means ultimately your body is going to chip into fat stores for energy, does not mean that it's going to chip into those muscle stores. Okay, that is the absolute last resort, and I can guarantee if you set things up right, that won't happen, right? And then obviously pair that with training really fucking hard, like we've just spoken about, and everything we've just spoken about, plus the consistency of that, where you're not just super locked in one week and then the next week you're a bit shit and then you're really shit and then you lock in harder the next week, but instead you're just consistent over a long period of time. Meal prep, progressive overload, sleep, hydration, etc. That means you're going to achieve your true physique. Okay, it really is as simple as that. You need to break those limiting beliefs as to thinking that you cannot build muscle in a diet phase. The sooner you do that, the sooner you'll look fucking unreal. And then some real life examples, just so again to back my well, it's not really an opinion, I mean it's facts. Okay, but as you can see, Gabe here, less fat, more muscle. I mean, that was all while working 12-hour shifts in the mines as well. You can visually see bigger chest, sharp abs, more legs, so on and so forth. Ryan, he gained 5 kilo with me and literally got like far leaner at the same time. Again, young lad, had no structure to food previously, gets some structure to food, actually does some expenditure, actually trains fucking hard and tracks his numbers. His body is like, oh shit, we can grow some muscle and drop some fat. Tom, perfect example as well, which I'll go into a little bit more detail. Skinny fat to photoshoot ready, 12-week diet phase into a 5-week building phase. Okay, so 17 weeks and he went from that to that. All 3 phases of Project Relentless changed Tom's life. Okay, this guy, pints, takeaway food, still smashing the gym, but takeaway food, pints, bad habits. This guy got everything that we've just spoken about in place, and it looks like that in just 17 weeks. And a little bit on here, you know, how we actually did it, which ties into everything we've just spoken about so far. As you can see beforehand, high fat diet, random calories, butters, spreads, random food, drinking alcohol, made him look like this in comparison to where we got him to. Phase 1 break average, which is pretty much everything we've just spoken about in terms of standards. Destroy autopilot, okay, reset your standards, understanding that you need to take elite action if you want to look elite. So lifestyle audit, what were the bad habits holding him back? Sleep, screen time, food, weekend habits, eliminate distractions and self-sabotage, build some structure you can actually follow, and then identity work. I'm not average anymore. I'm not going to lose muscle when I go into a diet anymore. Before you build your body, you need to break the habits that are keeping you stuck. Into the 12-week body recomposition, which is pretty much everything that we've just spoken about put into practice, as in small deficit, training really fucking hard, high protein, taking away from carbs only when necessary, and actually doing everything outside of the gym that you need to be doing as well. Phase 2, discipline on command. This is where, it's going to get hard. You're pushing through the skinny fat phase. It doesn't feel that exciting because you're not shredded yet. You need to have non-negotiable routines, accountability systems, emotional detachment from your routine. Okay, not basing your routine off of emotions like I mentioned previously. Weekly resilience goals as well. Not training just because you feel motivated. You train because it's who you are, and you progressively overload every single session because it's who you are. Into a slow and steady building phase, this is what you could do as well if you do get nice and lean after a successful recomposition, which is where you can gradually build the calories back up and reverse out and look nice and full. And then phase 3, built to last, results that don't collapse. Progressive physique programming, flexible nutrition without losing control, stress and burnout management, and sharing the wins inside the community. Hell fucking yeah. So yeah, that is literally how you can continue to build muscle and drop fat at the exact same time. It is literally as simple as that, okay? And I'll continue to do it every single year and get better and better because my standards are high enough in order to do so. So if you found that video, then feel free to drop a like, subscribe, comment any questions, of course. Head over to my Instagram at SBFit with 3 T's and feel free to message me about anything to do with this. But yeah, hopefully you found it helpful. Catch you in the next one.